Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me this evening on this workshop all around mental health in our teenagers. And this workshop is a really important one. It's all about spotting the signs. What's normal, what's not, and what can we do if we are concerned? So one of the biggest questions that I get asked from parents is, how do we know the difference between typical normal teenage behavior and when it's something more concerning with their mental health? So this workshop is all about giving you those signs, what to look out for, what could be seen as normal, and when you should be a little bit more concerned and maybe reaching out for a bit more support. So that's what the workshop's all about. I hope you find it useful, and just thank you again for joining. So just in case you don't know, my name's Laura. I am the founder of Parentology. I'm a qualified psychotherapist and a coach, and I've been working with teenagers, parents and families forever, since 2003. So I offer counselling and I offer coaching. I can work with teenagers or parents or everyone all together, and I'll leave my contact details at the end if you wanted to get in touch. But that's basically who I am. So I'm a qualified psychotherapist. Everything that I do comes from a psychoeducational background. So I always like to give the reasons as to why behaviours are happening to allow us to understand what's going on for our teenagers. So if you've been around Parentology for a while, you'll know that. But if you're new, welcome. And that's who I am. So let's get into the workshop. So this workshop is especially for you if you have been lying awake at 2 a.m. wondering, is this teenage stuff or is this something more serious? If you have felt unsure on how to help your teenager when they shut down, if they start to spiral or they're saying that they're fine when clearly they're not. And also, if you want tools that actually work, not the generic stuff you get off Google or anything off the NHS websites, which have their place, but the stuff that I offer you here at Parentology is tried and tested and based in evidence and research. So it's what I use with my teenage clients, it's what I use with my own teenage girls, and it's what I share with parents. So that's what I'm putting together in these workshops, especially for you, and how to support their mental health. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to help you tell the difference between what is typical behavior and what is a sign that your teenager might be struggling a little bit more emotionally, so that you can respond in confidence without second guessing yourself. This is one of the biggest things that I work with parents is we don't get taught how to parent a teenager. You parent your younger children through primary school age, just fixing and rescuing them and doing whatever they need. If they hurt themselves, you hug them. If they fall out with friends, you speak to their parents. If they lose their PE kit, you go to lost property. We fix their problems. When they get into their teenagehood or their preteens, we are in a very different world. And that is what we don't get taught, because we're still trying to fix them, right? But they have now changed. They don't want us to fix their stuff. There's nothing to fix. They are not broken. But we now turn into their counsellor and their coach. And that's what I'm here to help you with, that transition, because we focus all of our attention on our teenagers, but we forget about ourselves. And actually, we need to transition with them. It's a really important point and something that we're just not ever learned. We're not taught. So let me ask you a question. How many times have you wished you knew what was going on in your teenager's mind? I don't know if I want to know exactly what's going on in their mind, but you just don't know how to ask. You don't know how to approach them, and you're really worried about making it worse. So this is a big thing that happens, right? We see our teenagers start to shut down, or we see anxiety creeping in a little bit more, or we see a change in their behavior, and we think to ourselves, oh, crikey, I'm not quite sure how to do it. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And the worst thing is that social media is out there telling us different ways of dealing with this. And we are terrified that if we say the wrong thing, they're going to start spiraling, or they're going to start blowing up, and we're not going to be able to deal with their anger and their big emotions. I'm here to tell you that you can. And one of the worst things we can do is not say anything. Is that right? The worst thing we can do is not say anything. We have to talk to our teenagers. We have to keep that line of communication really, really open to them, because otherwise we will miss the signs. And again, if you've watched any of my stuff before, it is all about keeping those communication lines open. And if you've worked with me, you'll know I call it the fat bug. That's for another story. All right. So how often have you felt like this? How often have you left wondering, are their mood swings normal, or is this something that I need to worry about? Okay. Is what I'm seeing okay? That you might have felt completely helpless when your teenager has shut you down and you are left second guessing everything that you say or do. Like I just said, we worry that we're going to make it worse. I tell you now, you are not going to make it worse. What you will be doing is showing connection, but I'll go on to that in a little bit. You might be feeling very frustrated that every conversation that you're having with your teenager is turning into an argument or stonewalling, silence. They shut down. And no matter how hard you are trying, you just can't reconnect with your teenager. I certainly have felt like that recently this week with my teenagers. So it's something that is very universal, and something that you are certainly not alone in feeling. And also, how often are you left worrying that you're not doing enough to support their mental health, and also not knowing where to start? Because a lot of stuff that we deal with might not deem serious enough to go and speak to a GP, or might not feel bad enough to talk to your friends and family, but something inside is niggling you. Therefore, it is important. If it's worrying you, if it's keeping you up in the middle of the night, if you are overthinking or worried about it, then it is something to be worried about, if that makes sense. Okay, but what you really want to happen is that you want to be able to confidently understand what's going on in your teenager's mind without second guessing yourself. This is all about the instinct, your gut instinct. You know your child and you know if something is not right. Therefore, you need to talk to someone. Okay, so if your gut is telling you it's not okay, then it's not. The second guessing part is very much part of the world that we are in. If you're on social media or if you're in the Facebook group, you might be reading some of the posts that are coming out and going, oh, crikey, I don't do that, or that's not what I do. There was a recent post out last week, was all about teenagers' sleep. Now, my teenager, my 15-year-old, has had 2 all-nighters this week. It's the summer holidays. They've had 2 all-nighters. Am I worried about it? Absolutely not. No, I'm not. There is a rule in our house that if you have to be up for school at 7 o'clock, then you are up at 7 o'clock for school, regardless of how tired you are. That is a whole other thing, probably another workshop to be had right there. But there is a lot of judgment out there. Therefore, that judgment could then cloud our gut instinct. I know my daughter. I know what she's like when she's had no sleep, and I also know what she's going to do to rectify that. Therefore, I can leave her. I trust her. So I don't need to second guess myself with that. But I'm not going to lie, even though it's the stuff I put out there, and I'm reading other people's responses, I'm sitting there going, "Oh crikey, am I the only one letting that happen?" So this is all about not trust your gut instinct. Everybody else is doing their own stuff to bring up their own teenagers. You don't know what is happening behind closed doors. So you know this, we all know this. Social media is not what it's all cracked up to be. We know that even the most important, like the most well together family, are still having their problems. I will be the first one to say that I work with teenagers, have done forever, and I have my own, and I have to really dig deep to try and use my own resources and my own understanding, because I will be challenged by them. So I am with you in it. I understand what you're going through, but I also know what we can do. And it's about how quickly we can turn that logical brain on to stop ourselves second guessing. I hope that hasn't put you off. I do know what I'm doing, but I'm just saying that like teenagers can push their buttons and we can be left feeling completely disarmed and totally unequipped on how to deal with the teenagers. We are fine. We have got you. I've got you. You want to have a nice, calm, open conversation with your teenager where they feel safe to share their thoughts and their emotions. This comes down to empathy. This all comes down with how you talk to your teenager. So where they feel safe to share is all about how you ask them. If they fall out with a friend and you turn around and go, it's fine, you'll be fine tomorrow, don't worry, it shuts that conversation down completely because they can't answer it. They're not feeling fine. They don't think it's going to be fine. The whole world's going to be laughing at them. To them, it's huge. And we've just shut them down. If you change the way you speak and just say something along the lines of, that sounds really tough, or that sounds like it's been a really hard day, that sounds a bit rubbish, you instantly are opening up that conversation. 1 minute, I'm just going to have to tick something like that. Apologies. Right, hopefully we're back. So it's all about allowing them to open up and keep that conversation flowing. I'm going to do a quick little plug here for the 2 books that I've got out on Amazon. These books are full of scripts, full of what to say and what not to say to keep the communication going with your teenagers. So these links are everywhere, but I will put them in an email out to you that goes along, or in the comment box along with this video. But these books have all the scripts in there to help your teenager open up. So if you also want to feel rest assured, if you want to feel assured that you're giving your teenager the right support to navigate the challenges and to thrive, and you also want to have that stronger, more connected relationship with your teenager that will last into their adulthood. I mean, I'm sure that's pretty much what we all want. Is I was just saying to the last group that I did this workshop with, is all I want is my teenage girls to come back in their 30s for a roast dinner on a Sunday, and to be able to tell me about their day. And that starts in their teenagehood by opening up that communication. All right, so that's what we're going to cover in this workshop. So what are our teenagers worried about? So if we've got these worries about mental health and deeper concerns about what's happening for our teenagers, we need to understand what their worries are about, what's going on in their mind. Now, these are taken not only from just common sense about what our teenagers are working with, but this is what I'm hearing in the therapy room when I'm working with teenagers, when I'm working with them, when I've got my own 2 girls that are going through their stuff. One of the biggest things that our teenagers will worry about is not feeling good enough. Now, they have come from a primary school era where they are given rewards every week for their reading, for their writing, pen licenses, Star of the Weeks, gold badges for putting their lunchbox away. They get rewarded for everything. Fabulous. I love that. That does so much for self-esteem building. It's unreal. Then they enter secondary school. All goes. They don't even get rewarded for that's a whole other thing. I won't go into that one right now. But teenagers are not feeling good enough. They are already going through a huge developmental shift at this point where their brains are not able to understand logically what's going on. Therefore, emotionally, they just feel pretty worthless. It's part of a developmental part. It's part of their developmentalment, that's not the right word, but it's part of their development. They have to go through this in their teenage years, because if they don't figure out who they are. Let me explain that a little bit more as I talk about identity and belonging, this bit here. So I'm going to talk about this bit. In their teenage years, they are worried. I mean, I'm sure we can all remember being in our young teenagers where you are worried about how you are presenting yourself to the world. Now, there is a very famous psychological study that is linked to their psychosocial development of their personality. It's related to a guy called Erickson, who is right back into the 40s. And he talked about this real crucial time of their teenage years where they have to compete with their identity. They have to be confused by who they are to be able to work through it. If you get what I mean. Probably not making much sense. A teenager needs to feel or try out lots of different things, try different hats on. They might become bisexual for a week. They might dye their hair pink. They might push the boundaries in school and get a detention. They may start pushing their boundaries at home, very likely. They are trying lots of different things to figure out what feels good and what doesn't feel good. Now, that is very, very typical. And I would expect to see that in any teenager. So I would expect them to be worried about their identity. Who am I? What's my place in the world? I don't know what job I want to do. I don't know what I should be doing at this point. I don't know who my friends are. I expect that confusion. And if I don't have that confusion, that raises more concerns for me because it shows that they're not really working through that phase. Now, schools are very good at beating this into our kids, that they need to know what they want to do for a job and they need to know what they want to be when they grow up and all that. They don't. They absolutely shouldn't. I mean, unless they've really got quite a desire to be something, then fine. But majority of teenagers will be confused, and they should be. However, they will be worried about this because the other adults in their world, school, are telling them they should know what they want to become. Does that make sense? So they are in this confused place where they should be, they're in a confused place. They're confused because they should be confused, but they should have this confusion. And our job as parents is to facilitate that confusion, allow the stability at home to be nice and secure so they can test those boundaries, keep the boundaries by all means. And if they push at school and get a detention, rightly so. If they dye their hair pink and it goes wrong, they learn. If they try their sexuality in different relationships and bits and pieces, be there to listen to them and hold them metaphorically or physically in that space so they can really become who they need to become. So that feeling of identity, along with not feeling good enough, is really important for teenagers to go through it. We know that because our logic brains are working, and look, I'm telling you, but teenagers are going to be really overthinking that, like it doesn't feel okay, but that is all part of their growth. All right. So it's really important that they go through it and we don't take it away from them. As hard as it is to watch them go through this, we need to just hold the space so they can do it as safely as we can. And obviously, if they're doing unsafe behaviors, then that's a whole different conversation. But I would expect the teenager to feel very confused, very anxious and quite low about it all, because they should be. I will explain when that becomes something a bit deeper in a moment, but that's what they worry about, and I would expect to see that. They are also worried, sorry, I've got a screen inside it. They are also worried about their mental health. They are going to be worried about their anxiety, their low mood, their overthinking, and they're probably burning out from what school are offering them. I see more than ever now in the therapy room, teenagers self-diagnosing themselves with various different conditions, all thanks to TikTok. So I'm very gentle with them when they come in with different diagnoses, because they are trying to seek answers. Again, very much part of that. I don't like this feeling of confusion. They're trying to analyze themselves and find diagnoses. Totally normal, nothing to worry about. However, logically, because our logic brain is working, we can work that out and say, actually, this is how you're meant to feel, and it's okay, it will pass. I will explain when that becomes a problem if it doesn't. Social pressures, again, I was explaining this in another group earlier today, was that social pressures isn't just about belonging to a friendship group or the social media pressures that we have. It's often to go with our belief system. So as a young child, your child is developing a belief system, principles, morals. They're developing all that in their younger years. Then they hit the teenage years and suddenly we've got peer pressure that comes in. So they might see someone, for example, being bullied, and they want to step in because that's their principles, but they also fear the rejection of their friendship group, so they hold back. That can cause what we call quite a lot of cognitive dissonance. Their brains can't quite work out what's going on there, so they hold back. You've also got things like they might really enjoy computer club, for example, and have a real passion for it, but also don't want to be seen to be liking that sort of stuff, so they hold back. Again, that's going to create some level of anxiety or apprehension because they can't be their true authentic self. So we've got this whole weird thing going on before the age of probably about 16, where they are trying to desperately fit into friendship groups, but also battling an internal conflict with what they really want to do. So that is a real big worry. They are constantly in this kind of like, I really want to do that, but I shouldn't do that, and I should to-ing and fro-ing with what's going on. So be aware that that's going on as well. And the future, my God, if schools don't keep going on from the age of like 6 about what they want to do in the future, it is damaging our teenagers. Don't put the pressure on them to know what they want to do for their college courses or their A-levels, or they, you know, putting all this pressure on about GCSEs. They will be fine. Whatever their GCSE grades are, forget what the schools are telling them. And I'm very strong on this point. Schools will be telling them they need all their GCSEs to get anywhere in life. If their mental health is shot to pieces, don't matter what grade they get in maths. If their mental health is not in tip-top condition, they're not going to succeed anyway. So our priority as parents, and please disagree with me in comments if you'd like, but our main priority as parents is to make sure their mental health is nice and calm, and they are emotionally equipped to deal with what life is going to throw at them. I could go and do my GCSEs tomorrow. I can go and do a course tomorrow. I can become whatever I want to do in my career when I'm an adult. Okay, teenagers need to feel secure and they need to feel confident. All right, so if we are putting pressure on about their future, they are already getting a bucket load of that at school, and I'm not going to go into my soapbox about the education system, but they are already feeling it. So the worry is real. They are already feeling so much stuff. So we need to be aware that this is what's going on. And again, in these books, I do go into what identity means and the social pressures that our teenagers are going into. And both the books, one on teenage boys and one on teenage girls, both go into the mental health different, because girls very much work on their self-esteem. Boys are very much about the confidence and other bits and pieces around their anger and fitting in and that sort of thing. So I will put the link in for you to go and check them out. But just to let you know, when they are dealing with all of this worry, they are not being lazy or dramatic. They are working in a world that is overwhelmed and never switches off. So they are being pumped all the time with all of this information. So it's no wonder that our teenagers are stressing out. How do these worries, though, present themselves? So what is it that you will see? You will see things like shutting down, hiding in their room, withdrawing, saying they're fine, but they're not, and cancelling plans. They might start blowing up. They might become snappy, rude, have outbursts, be overreacting. They might be arguing. Absolutely, this happens in our house with everything or nothing. But also what you'll see is a lot of masking and overdoing. So they might be overachieving. They might be people-pleasing, perfectionism. They might be overcompensating for what they're feeling. But also they might be trying to hold it all together. We get a lot of this, obviously, with neurodiversity. They hold it all together at school because they can't let those social pressures get to them, and then they just break down when they get home. And obviously they'll be smiling, but secretly really struggling. Now, a lot of this stuff is going to be, it's hard to put these workshops together to be generic because every teenager is individual. Now, one of my teenager is very introvert. So actually the shutting down wouldn't be weird for me to see that in her, because that whole hiding in the room and kind of cancelling plans, just part of her personality. However, if she started being very snappy and rude, then we would have a problem, and I need to prick my ears up and realize that something else is going on. So like I say here, every teenager will deal with stress differently. Some go quiet, some explode, but you need to learn your own teenagers' behaviors as to what's going on for them. I think that's what I talk about here. So what is really going on behind the behavior, and when should we worry? So we've talked about all the stuff that they're worrying about, and you see these sort of behaviors starting to present. But how do we know that this is actually a problem? And when do we realize that this is just teenage behavior of all this identity crisis going on? So here are 5 things that will show you if it's more than a phase. The biggest one that I want you to take away from this workshop is that changes that last. So if you see a shift in their mood or their sleep or their appetite or their energy, if you see a change in their behavior and it stays the same for a few weeks, then we've got something going on. All right. What I mean by that is mental health, emotions, feelings, all of this need to be fluid. We need to feel all of the emotions throughout the days. We can't always be happy. That's overrated. But what I say to clients is about being content. And what I mean by being content is being able to deal with all the other emotions in an okay way. So if you've got a teenager that in the morning is really, really grumpy, then feels quite happy, then is snapping at you, then is slamming a door, and then is going out with his friends, then is laughing and joking. If you've got that going on, that's typical teenage behavior. I would expect it to be a roller coaster. If you've got a teenager who is very low and stays like that, I say for a few weeks, I would say anything over 2 weeks would be concerning, and they can't shift it. That means we have got a stuck feeling. We have got the emotions have got themselves stuck, and that needs professional support to unblock that emotion. And sometimes, shockingly, teenagers are not going to come and speak to somebody like me. It's too big. It's too scary. Hence why things like the books and Parentology exist, because I can give you the skills as a parent to help your teenager through that stuff. Obviously, we'll talk about the more serious stuff in a moment. But if your teenager is not shifting or isn't becoming fluid with their emotions, then it's time to reach out. So that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest signs about mental health becoming a problem, is that it gets very stuck. If your teenager is just shouting and snapping and slamming doors and being that sort of that I would say is more typical teenage behavior. Not nice to live with, don't get me wrong. However, it is very normal. I would expect that turmoil because of the identity worries that are going on in their head. So if you can't shift your teenager out of that space, something to be aware of. If they are in high anxiety for a few weeks, we need to be noticing that. If everything feels very agitated, we need to be getting support. If they are not going to school, if they're withdrawing completely for a few weeks and you can't shift that at all, come and get some support, because we can help. If they have lost their interest or motivation, when nothing feels worth it anymore. So if they've just stopped caring about things they used to love, or they seem really tired of everything, this is a sign that they're probably emotionally drained. They're not lazy. Teenagers have this horrible reputation of just being late. Yeah, no, okay. I say that as my daughter didn't go to sleep till 4:30 this morning and didn't get up to about 3 o'clock this afternoon. But I mean, that's lazy. But there's other things that show me that that's just teenage behavior. If they are very low and very tired and just don't want to do anything, again, for a few weeks, I would be raising a few little eyebrows and getting some support. If they are withdrawing from everyone, not just shutting you out, very normal, again, to shut parents out. We're irritating, we're embarrassing, we don't understand them. All of that stuff goes on. However, if they start withdrawing from friends, families, everything online, if they start to just shut down completely, they're sitting in their room with nothing going on, they're kind of rewatching very similar stuff and not really engaging with it, then we've got something going on that shows they're probably silently struggling with something. And if they're struggling with everyday stuff, so if they're struggling to get to school, if they're not finishing the homework, if they start talking to people and it starts to feel impossible, then this is another sign that they are feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Again, that's not surprising when you look back at the worries, right? When their brains are overthinking, it can sometimes flood the emotional brain and it needs to dry out, you know what I mean? It sort of needs time to decompress. So again, it has to be a consistent amount of time for it to sort of class more as a mental health. But if they need a good weekend just to recharge their batteries, typical teenage stuff, too much going on. If we still can't move it on after a little bit of time, then we've got something else going on where they might need a little bit more support to unblock that emotional overwhelm. This is a really concerning one if you start to notice more risky behaviours in how they're coping. So they might self-harm, and that's not just the generic stuff we see through cutting or burning. This can be through over-exercising, eating patterns. It could be about skin picking their nails, also pulling hair, all that sort of stuff. So, risky behaviours, they might be getting into relationships or hanging around with a not so good group. And extreme perfectionism, getting really angry that things aren't working. They might rip up their homework. They might get angry if they're decorating a cake. I don't know where that comes from, but they'll get angry at stuff. If they are saying anything like, I don't want to be here anymore, or I don't care anymore, if they're really showing that kind of complete fatigue, then that is a sign of something a little bit more concerning. I absolutely would be reaching out. My details are going to be at the end of this, and you're welcome to give me a call to understand. But listen, you know your teenager better than anybody else on this planet, right? You know them. Trust your instincts. That's, if I have one word to sum up Parentology, it's about encouraging you guys to trust your instincts. Teenagers' moods will change like that. It will change in a blink of an eye. And the problem is, because we are so hyper fixated on mental health in our teenagers, rightly so, we are waiting for something to happen. So we therefore are becoming so like, they've fallen out with their friend and we're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And we've already catastrophized that they're going to never have friends again and they're going to be lonely and all that stuff, probably triggering up our own stuff. And then tomorrow they're fine. And we're still left a bit like, oh, okay. And we've got to learn to move with them as well. So trust your instincts. Don't worry about what's going on in the Facebook group. Don't worry about what your friends are doing. You trust your own instincts with your child. Now, I don't care if you contact me 100 times in a month, right? If you just need that reassurance to know, is it typical teenage behavior? I'd rather you do that than ignore signs that are going on. What can you do right now so we can understand what the worries are? We know what our teenagers are overthinking about and worrying about, and a little bit of the psychology of what they should be really going through. All very normal. Doesn't make it okay. It feels pretty rubbish, but it's all very normal. We also know the signs, the 5 signs to be looking out for, of when we can see that actually this is something a little bit more serious than just teenage behavior. Now, what do we do about it? The first thing I want you to do as of today is to start observing, start noticing the changes in behavior. Start to really get to know your teenager. What's their normal? Okay. Notice the different changes in patterns. Notice the different moments as well. So different patterns, different moments. How do they react to stuff? If you remember when they were toddlers and or babies even, and you just get into a routine, And then suddenly they change again. And you're like, but we're just going through a routine. It's going to happen again, right? It happens in the teenagehood as well. So we just get used to their patterns and then they shift and they change. Keep up with them as much as you can. Make sure they still remain your priority, because it's very easy as they become teenagers for us to take a step back. We get on with our own life, and we should, but keep an eye open. Keep looking at them and watching. They are noticing if you're noticing them, right? They will know if you're there for them or not. And again, I'll mention a bit of that in a minute. Acknowledge with empathy. So this is what I was saying, and what's written in the books is things like, you seem really flat lately, anything on your mind. That shows them that you've noticed. That shows them that you've seen what's going on and you've noticed what they're feeling. And also, if they come in and they say they're having a tough day, repeat it back. I can see today's been really, really heavy. Did you need anything? Do you want me to do anything? Honestly, game changers, little shifts. I know it sounds really kind of airy fairy, or I don't really understand how that works. Little shifts in the way you talk will open up whole conversations. Trust me on that one. Game changer, this one. Do ask them, do you want comfort or a solution? This is the one phrase that will open all the communication doors. You might want to change it into something else that doesn't sound like a therapist is just giving it to you. But do you want comfort or do you want a solution? When your teenager is really struggling with the overwhelm and the worry, asking them this question will do one of two things. Well, we'll do two things. The first one is it makes them stop and become accountable. So they might be having all this turmoil going on in their head. They're not okay. They don't look okay. You've noticed it because you've done step one, and you say, I've noticed you're not okay. Is there anything I can do? Do you want me to help, or do you want me to hug you? Do you want a hug, or do you want to help? Do you want comfort or a solution? What do you need from me? So you make them stop. They need to stop and then think about what they need to make this feeling go away or make this feeling better. So if they ask for comfort, that means they want to cry, they want to rant, they want to just talk, they want to have a cuddle, they want to offload. And if they want a solution, then you go into full fix-it parent mode and you fix whatever's going on for them. But you are giving them the choice, because as children, we would go in and just fix it. We didn't even ask if they wanted comfort. We would just give it to them. Now we have to change. Do they want me to help them, or do you want me to hug you? The other thing it does as well is it allows us to go to bed with a nice clear conscience, because we have gone to them and we've said, here I am, what do you need from me? So we've been very open to them about what do they need. So we can do that as well. That allows us to feel like we are doing the very best we can, and it allows your teenagers to start growing that emotional intelligence. There is quite a high chance they're going to say nothing. I don't want anything. That's fine. You go back, and again, if you've seen any of my stuff before, you go back in half an hour and you say it again. Is there anything I can help you with? Do you want a snack? Do you want some comfort, or do you want a solution? Keep presenting yourself to them, because they need to know you're there. They need to know that they need to know that they matter to you, right? So keep that open. Use that comfort and solution. They're going to get sick of it, but they will really appreciate it. Obviously, phrase it in a word that means something to your family, not, comfort and solution is a bit clinical, isn't it? But use what you need to use. And get support, not just for your teenager, because it's very easy. And when I started building Parentology, there's so much stuff out there for your teenager. If they're anxious, do this. If they're depressed, do this. What about us, right? Both my teenagers have had their struggles, and I have got them all the support in the world, right? But I've been left absolutely drained, and I don't know who to turn to, because there's a lot of stigma out there in terms of if your teenager's not coping, then it's a reflection on you. So then parents don't reach out for support. Hence why Parentology has all this stuff. We have all this stuff with Facebook, but also things like the books and workshops and stuff become anonymous. So you can access all that support without telling the whole world what's going on, and also the one-to-one work. So make sure you're getting support, not just for your teenager, but also for you, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, that old cliche. You also don't have to do this alone. If I heard one parent say they're not struggling with a teenager, I'd call them a liar, because everyone is having this turmoil, because it's only natural. If you are a woman of a certain age, puberty and perimenopause, I don't know what cruel joke that was, but there is hormones flying everywhere, and it can be an absolute explosion. What else have I said here? So also, by showing your teenager that you're asking for help actually is a fantastic role model anyway. It shows that actually mental health is really important, and we should be accessing support as much as we would do for our physical health. But you know that I'm not going to bang on about that, because that is my whole cliche, my whole thing. But what if you are really worried? What if what I've said and you're going, oh, crikey, they've not come out of their room for a couple of weeks, and what if I've missed the signs? And you're starting to get yourself worried. Hold fire. I've got you. All right, take a breath first. I have put in one of the downloads that I'll attach this video, there is a whole list of helplines, all free. Some are 24 hours a day. Some are there for your teenagers, so they can access things like Childline if they're under 17, I think. They can access Childline. They can access so many different things where there are trained counsellors at the end of the phone. They won't always get the same one, but at least they can talk to a trained professional. If you are looking for support, there's Young Minds, I have put it there, Parents Helpline, absolutely brilliant to offer you support and advice if you are struggling, not struggling, but if you are looking for a little bit of extra support. But all of these are going to be attached to the email that I send out, or are going to be in the comments if it's on the YouTube. And of course, myself, Parentology, you can book in for a chat. So I offer a free half-hour talk, a free half-hour chat. And in that half hour, you can tell me exactly what's going on, exactly what's happening, and all of your worries in confidence. And what I do with that is I'll offer lots of support and advice during that call. And then after the call, I'll come up with some suggestions that might help. And that could be anything from one-to-one sessions. It can be things like I use an app called Voxer, which is oh my God, it's game changing, because what it's doing, it's allowing me, it works like WhatsApp, and it allows me to be with you on a phone. I'm not actually in your house, to be with you when you are going through these moments. So when your son is having a meltdown and getting really angry, when your teenage daughter won't come out of her room, if self-harming is ongoing, if there's stuff going on, then there's an app we can use that allows me to help you through those moments as they're happening. There is absolutely no obligation to do anything with anything that I offer, but it is just an offer of support there to let you know what's out there, really. Things like the one-to-one sessions I offer are really good. They often work in retrospect. So if we've got a session next Wednesday, you've got to now remember what happened yesterday to be able to get the support that you need, which is why the app works so brilliantly. But I will put the link to booking for a chat either to the email that this comes out on, or in the comments under the notes, to go on there for you to book directly in with me to come and have a chat. Again, no obligation, but you will get something out of it, I promise. Here are my contact details as well. So if you just want to drop me a text just to say, look, is this normal or not? Please do. Also with the email. With the stuff we do with the support that I offer is all very confidential. Obviously, I have to just say, the confidentiality is as much as it is on a phone number. All right, so I will keep it all confidential, but just to let you know, be careful what you are putting out there in terms of personal details. That sounds a bit, not to me, it stays confidential with me, but of course, you know, you don't know where it's going in the world. I don't want to say. But listen, I've put any other questions, and that's because this was on to a different workshop earlier on today. But if there is any questions, please do drop me a line. Let me know what you're thinking. If you are worried about anything to do with your teenager, whether it's their mental health, which is what this has all been about today, if it's about behaviour, well-being, hygiene, relationships, friendships, anything like that, head over to the parentologyworld.com website. Drop me a line, and I can offer you I can guide you to where certain bits and pieces are that might be able to help you. It's growing as we speak, so I'm putting new content out on the website all the time. And of course, keep talking on the Parent in Teen Hub, the Facebook group, because it is such a busy place for other parents that are totally getting you. And even though you might not see many replies, that people are reading it, and people are there in the background really hearing and understanding what's going on. So please take away from this that you are not alone. Mental health is a serious business, and I hope this workshop has done something to sort of identify what's normal and when should we be a bit more concerned. If you are concerned, please take a breath, try not to worry, get in touch as soon as you can, and I can hopefully offer some reassurance and definitely offer you some advice to move forward. Support can generally be put in within a week if it comes through the private route. So again, it's an option out there for you. I'm going to stop waffling on. Thank you very much for coming to the workshop and watching it right to the end. If you've got anything you'd like to ask, you've got my contact details. Thank you again, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.